And good morning, everybody on the West Coast. Vasu Vada Party here. Charlie O will join us in a second. He's having some technical difficulties logging in, so we'll get him in a minute. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, September 3rd, 2021. Happy advanced Labor Day weekend to everybody. We hope you have a good and safe and sound holiday weekend. Lots of college football to talk about. This is the Friday football show segment. We'll have that in about 20 minutes. With all the college previews and all the college games that started. We had some games that started on Thursday as well. Last weekend as well was week 0. Somebody still has to explain that to me, but now it's week 1. Excuse me. So now week 1 of the college football season officially started yesterday. Ohio State and Minnesota. Ohio State did not cover the 14-point spread. They did win 45-31, so I got a push out of it. And then the other big game was Boise State and Central Florida. Boise State had a lead late in the game, and Central Florida came back, scored a touchdown, did not get the 2-point conversion, which made a lot of people happy considering it was a 6.5-point spread. So as of right now, going into Friday, I am 3-0-1 in college football with 1-0-1 last night. We'll have some games for you tonight. I'll have an early pick for you in baseball, and then my later picks will come at 6 Eastern on the Facebook and Instagram and social media pages. You can catch us every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays right here at the times you see on the screen, 3 Eastern, Thursday at noon Eastern, and today at 1 Eastern. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Download, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub serving customers since 1981. Go in there for all your football games, all your weekend action, and also during the week, Britannia Arms also caters to those that are interested in lunches or after work sessions or anything of that nature. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Check out our social media pages by 6 Eastern for later picks and updates on games and later picks that we have coming up. A lot of baseball to talk about this weekend. We'll get to that in a second. College football. We'll have our intern, Nick Robinson, on at 45 minutes after the hour. He'll be on to come and talk about wagering and the wagering angle in the forms that he likes to do it, player props, different type of angles for wagering for the younger generation that go into this with a different outlook on sports and sports gaming. So Nick Robinson, our intern, will be here at 10:45 on the West Coast, 1:45 on the East Coast, about 42 minutes from now. Charlie O trying to log in on his Wi-Fi. He'll be with us in a second as well. So let's get going here. Major League Baseball. Had a lot of action in baseball tonight. Let me get to the baseball page here. First of all, these are the lines for the games. The Chicago Cubs, Pittsburgh Pirates, they'll start at 2:20 Eastern in about an hour and 10 minutes. The Cubs with Alec Mills, the Pirates with Stephen Brault, 143, 8.5 to total. Alec Mills coming off his last start against the White Sox where he shut down the powerful Chicago White Sox on the road, no less, and he beat Lance Lynn. That's the game Lynn went only 5 innings and got pounded a little bit. Ortega hit a grand slam against him that kind of took him out of the game. And then after that, the next day or a couple of days later, Lance Lynn was put on the 10-day injured list. White Sox struggling right now. We'll get to the American League in a second. But the Cubs and Pirates go at 2:20 Eastern, 11:20 on the West Coast. Alec Mills and Stephen Brault. You got to think it's going to be a Cubs game. Friday afternoon baseball, nothing like it in Chicago. It'll be there. The New York Mets, still in the wild card race. They are still there. Believe it or not, they're still in the NL East race as well. Rich Hill goes up against the Washington Nationals, who have given them a bad time. Sean Nolan pitching for the Nationals, 137 for the Mets, 9 the total. The Mets are 5 back in the division, and they are what are they? 7. They're 4 back of the Reds and Padres in the wild card standings as well. So they're right there in it. A couple of bats, a couple of good hitting games, and they can make their way in it. This is a good weekend for them to go after Washington. They have their chances with Washington as well, but Washington always plays them tough. In fact, Marcus Stroman almost got beat the other night. Philadelphia, who's right there as well in the wild card, they're 1 game back along with St. Louis in the wild card race. They are how many games are they back now? They're 2 games back in the National League East behind Atlanta, who came off a sweep against the Dodgers. They lost 3 to the Dodgers. They got back on the horse yesterday in Colorado. They won 6-5 at Colorado. Philadelphia did not play yesterday. They're going to Miami this week, in a place where the Miami Marlins have given them fits over the years. In fact, even Roy Halladay, the late great Roy Halladay, even got beat up a little bit down there in Miami. Jesus Luzardo, the former Oakland A, an underdog at home, 138 for Philadelphia, 7.5 the total. Kyle Gibson, the midseason acquisition from the from the Texas Rangers, and Jesus Luzardo, the midseason acquisition from the Oakland A's. Big one in the National League Central for St. Louis. The Milwaukee Brewers, who just took 3 out of 4 in San Francisco, travel back home to take on their rivals, I should say. Not their crosstown rivals, but their beer rivals, I guess. Miller versus Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser versus Miller. I guess that's the best way to put it. But anyway, the Milwaukee Brewers have a 10-game lead on the Cincinnati Reds after the Brewers lost yesterday in San Francisco 5-1. Good pitching game by Eric Lauer, but the Giants were a little bit better. We'll get to the West in a second. But the Brewers, 10 up on the Reds in the division. St. Louis only 1 game back of the Reds in the wild card right now. They are tied with Philadelphia, 64 losses, 1 game back of the Padres and Reds, who both have 63 losses. So this is a huge weekend for St. Louis. It's tough for them to go into Milwaukee and beat a really good team like the Brewers. Freddie Peralta, one of the 3-headed aces that the Brewers have, will go up against the venerable Adam Wainwright. Adam Wainwright, been in the big leagues a long time, since 2006, has a couple of world championships with the Cardinals. This Cardinal team not hitting as well as they were earlier in the year. I'm sorry, the middle part of the year. Earlier in the year, they were struggling. But the fact that they're there in the wild card race, they've got a chance to make some hay. And Milwaukee kind of cruising in the Central. This would be a good time for St. Louis to surprise them as well. National League games, the Atlanta Braves, we just mentioned, they're in Colorado. They got their Game 1 win on Thursday, 6-5. Huascar and Noah will go up against Anthony Senzatella. 133 for Atlanta, 11 the total. Seems low in Colorado. You got to figure that 11 might get hit a little bit, but Senzatella has pitched well at home. The Atlanta Braves, 71-62. They're 2 ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies and 5 ahead of the Mets in the National League East. They are 9 games back of the Brewers for the second spot overall and 13 back of the best record between the Dodgers and the Giants in the National League West. So Atlanta goes into Colorado. They have a lot to play for. No days off. As our friend Bill Lasky likes to say, no days off. They can't take anybody for granted. Colorado, the 4th best record at home in Major League Baseball. Senzatella and Noah goes tonight in Colorado. And then finally, the game of the night, at least the game of the night for me, the 2 best teams in baseball, 85-49. The Los Angeles Dodgers, San Francisco Giants at Oracle Park. David Price and what's going to be a bullpen game, 2 out of 3 games, are probably going to be bullpen games for the Dodgers. Anthony DeSclafani, if you take his Dodgers games out, he's had an unbelievable year, but he's been hit and hit hard by the Los Angeles Dodgers. But he gets the Game 1 start tonight. The Giants, 85-49, along with the Dodgers. Giants 5-5 in their last 10. Dodgers 7-3 in their last 10. They just came off the sweep of Atlanta. They've won 3 in a row after losing 2 out of 3 at home to Colorado. The Giants had a tough time with Milwaukee, but they did get a 5-1 victory. Tyler Estrada expanded the lead in the bottom of the 8th with a 3-run home run in what was a 2-1 game. The usually very reliable and very excellent Devin Williams had one of his worst outings ever. He gave up 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning to a Giants squad that frankly needed a win because they had not been out of first place since May 30th until yesterday. Technically, they were out of first place a half a game going into the day, but the loss column was the same, and that's what you look at, the loss column, the most important column. Both teams are going to make the playoffs. They're 4 games up on Milwaukee for the best record in baseball. One's going to win the division. One will be the number 4 seed as the wild card. They'll get the wild card game against whoever finishes second in the wild card standings. The Atlanta Braves are 13 back of the Milwaukee Brewer of the Dodgers and Giants, so they're probably going to be in 3rd place. They're 11 back. Is that right? 11 back, 53, 9 back of the Brewers in the loss column. I'm going to do my quick math here. So Milwaukee, unless they have a complete meltdown, they're going to end up as the number 2 seed. But don't count them out to get the best record. They're playing really well. Their pitching's really good. Devin Williams, we said the usually reliable Devin Williams, and Josh Hader at the back end of that bullpen have clearly made them a force to be reckoned with. Now they're getting some hitting, some timely hitting. Christian Yelich has been hot the last 3 weeks as well, too. So Milwaukee right there in the number 2 spot. They have St. Louis. But the Dodgers-Giants. So here's the big thing about the Dodgers-Giants this weekend. They're both tied for first. They're both going to make the playoffs. So in this scenario, with them making the playoffs, the head-to-head record comes into play immediately. If they end up tied at the end of the regular season, the head-to-head, and both make the playoffs, the head-to-head record comes in as the tiebreaker, the first and only tiebreaker. They play 19 games against each other. Division games are 19 games, so they don't have an even number of games, so you don't end up tied. The series is tied 8 games apiece. The Dodgers have a winning record in San Francisco. The San Francisco Giants have a winning record in Los Angeles. These games are an oracle. My birthday weekend, May 21st to May 23rd, the Dodgers were in town in San Francisco and absolutely throttled the Giants in a sweep. That was the last time. That was about the last time the Giants were in first place. Their last time in first place was May 30th. So about a week later, they were out of first place, but the Dodgers and their offense throttled them in San Francisco. A night game tonight, 6:45. David Price, DeSclafani, tomorrow 1:05 on the West Coast. And then Sunday night baseball on ESPN, 4:08 on the West Coast as well. But as for tonight, David Price, Anthony DeSclafani, 8.5 the total, 114 the Dodgers favored. How you feeling about that, Giants fans? You're not getting any respect at home. You're an underdog in your own home ballpark, and you're tied for the best record in baseball. But I think a lot of that, we all know in wagering and sports angles, it's all about the starting pitching. And Anthony DeSclafani has an ERA near 10 when it comes to facing the Dodgers. So he'll have to show up tonight. The head-to-head series is 8-8. Whoever wins this series, takes 2 out of 3 at the very least, will have the leg up when the regular season ends if they end up in a tie. If they end up in a tie, the head-to-head takes precedence. This is the number one tiebreaker. So right now, this 2 out of 3 series may not mean much in terms of the rest of baseball, but it's a huge series, not only for the division, but also for the wild card and also for the National League West, and also because, frankly, it's Giants-Dodgers. And if you know anything about that, Yankees-Red Sox in the East, Cubs-Cardinals in the Midwest, Dodgers-Giants right up there in terms of rivalries in the West, on the West Coast as well. So the Dodgers-Giants, the late game tonight, 9:45 on the East, 6:45 on the West. A lot of ramifications for this Labor Day weekend. It's going to be an interesting weekend in National League Baseball this week. All right, we'll hit the American League and we'll hit the interleague games in 30 seconds. Charlie O trying to get connected up with us as we speak. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for September 3rd, Labor Day weekend, 2021, sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com at 408-252-7262. We're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Don't forget our intern, Nick Robinson, will be with us at 10:45 on the West Coast, 1:45 on the East Coast with his unique views on sports wagering and sports angles as well, too. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be back in 30 seconds with the American League slate. Talk to you then. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasi Vadaparty here with you on Friday, September 3rd, Labor Day weekend, a big baseball weekend, also college football, which we'll get to in the Friday football segment as we get going. Hi, Christine. Hi, Larry on the Facebook pages as well. We got some comments. Larry Rosales watching us on Facebook. Great commentary on the big series this weekend. Well, you know who my rooting interests are, but I'm not a homer, Larry. Whatever happens this weekend, both teams are going to make the playoffs. Obviously, I'd like to see the Dodgers win the division as well. Thank you to Christine. Thank you to Larry as well. Britannia Arms Cupertino is our sponsor. Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, let's get to the American League slate here. Actually, let me do this one thing here while we get to it. The American League slate, let me just make some producing notes here as we talk. The American League slate, the Yankees and Orioles are getting together this weekend. The Yankees actually, you know what? I'll get to that later. So let's get to the standings right now. The New York Yankees are 77-56. They're 6 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays. Boston is 9 games back of the Rays. Boston ended up splitting that series with the Rays. They were down 11 games. Now they're down to 9 games back in the loss column, 77-59. Boston has a huge series with Cleveland. We'll get to that in a minute, but the Yankees hold a 3-game lead on Boston. In terms of the wild card, they are the number 1 wild card team as well, too. They have a 3-game lead, on Boston, and a 4-game, and Oakland is 1 game back of Boston. 1 game back of Boston. in the wild card spot. They're third. Seattle and Toronto are 3 games back as well. But the Yankees trying to hold on to that number 1 spot in the wild card. They still have a shot at Tampa Bay. They're 6 back in the loss column with the Rays, 77-56. Tampa Bay playing great baseball, 84-50. The Yankees and Orioles this weekend, they've hit the Orioles pretty hard. John Means, their best pitcher for the Orioles, 220 the favorite for the Yankees, with Nestor Cortez, a bullpen game, 9 the total for the Orioles. Toronto and Oakland. Toronto only 3 games back in the wild card behind the Red Sox for that second spot, 70-62. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They host those old Oakland A's right now. It's a big series for Toronto and Oakland. They can make ground on the A's. Toronto 2 games back of the third spot of the A's. Again, 3 games back of Boston for that second wild card spot. 70-62 for Toronto. Oakland at 74-60. Alex Manoah, the young rookie for the Toronto Blue Jays, has been great all year. He's favored 148. You wouldn't think that a rookie would be favored over the hot Oakland A's, who took 2 out of 3 from the Detroit Tigers. 8.5 the total. Glad to see they're back in Canada. How you doing, everybody in Canada? 148, 8.5 the total for the Toronto Blue Jays. Oakland A's, wild card ramifications all over the place. The A's are 6 games back in the wild, 5 games back in the wild card, 5 games back in the American League West in the division. The Blue Jays are too far out in terms of the American League East, but huge wild card ramifications between Oakland, Seattle, Toronto, and we'll get to Cleveland and Boston in a second. Tampa Bay, the best record in baseball, 84-50, 6 up on the White Sox and 5 up on the Astros for best record in the American League, 84-50. They are 5 games back. Actually, they are 84-50. 85-50. They're 1 game back of the Dodgers and Giants for overall best record in baseball, and best record in baseball does count when it comes to playoffs and World Series time. So the Tampa Bay Rays, with a bunch of people you never heard of unless you're in the know, they're there. They're playing well. 84 wins is nothing to laugh at as you get to Labor Day. They could end up with 105 wins if they have a really good month, but 100 wins is definitely possible for a team that does it differently through the analytics. Their bullpen games, they're the ones who started this concept of openers, and they're right there. Their hitting is great. Brandon Lau, Arozarena, G-Man Choi. They got Nelson Cruz in a trade deadline acquisition. They are playing well right now. 195 against the Minnesota Twins. Most disappointing team in the American League, maybe all of baseball, the Minnesota Twins. Randy Dobnak, the right-hander with the spectacles on, he goes for the Minnesota Twins. 9 the total for Michael Wacha, who's had kind of an up-and-down year for Tampa Bay. Boston and Cleveland, huge ramifications for Boston and Cleveland. Cleveland trying to still stay in the race. They are 5 back of the number 2 spot in the wild card race. Boston leads that wild card race, like I said, by 1 over Oakland and 3 over Seattle and Toronto. The Boston Red Sox are 9 back in the American League East. Cleveland Indians are 8 back in the American League Central behind the White Sox, 7-3. They've won their last 4. They swept the Kansas City Royals in Kansas City, something that a lot of teams have a tough time with. Kansas City may not have the best record in baseball, but they play hard and they give teams a good run for their money. The Chicago White Sox will find that out this weekend, as they've traditionally given the White Sox fits in Kansas City. But back to Boston and Cleveland, 170, 9 the total. Nathan Eovaldi, Cal Quantrill. Cal Quantrill's had a good year, son of the former major leaguer Paul Quantrill, and Nathan Eovaldi goes for the Red Sox tonight. We're going to welcome in Charlie O. He got his connection all set up. The American League setup that we have, Charlie, Boston, 170, 9 the total, and Nathan Eovaldi and Cal Quantrill. Just running through the rest of the games here. The Chicago White Sox, who have a tough time in Kansas City. Dallas Keuchel against the young rookie Carlos Hernandez. White Sox 8 up on the Indians. They're 6 back of the Rays for best record in the American League. Lance Lynn on the IL right now. Lucas Giolito got hurt the other day. Not sure exactly what the status is. 6-4 in their last 10. They had a day off to get ready for the Kansas City Royals. And finally, Shohei Ohtani goes tonight for the Angels, 187.5 against Glenn Otto, making a second major league start. We know all about the Texas situation with their COVID situation, the trades that they've made. They've really depleted their roster. And the Angels, even though they are 12.5 back, 13 back in the loss column, technically they're still in the wild card race. They're 9 back to the second spot with the Boston Red Sox. That's the American League wrap-up as we get to it right now. 2 interleague games, Cincinnati, Detroit, which we'll talk about with Charlie, and Houston and San Diego, which is a huge series for the Astros, as well as the Padres. So 2 big games there as far as National League wildcard scenarios go. Charlie O, welcome to the Make the Money and Run podcast. How are you?
Well, now that I'm finished being an IT guy, I'm great.
Little problem with the Wi-Fi this morning?
Well, I don't know. Don't get me started. Somehow I got on the air and I'm happy.
All right. Well, we ran through a lot of the baseball, so I'm just going to run through real quick with you. The baseball games coming up today. Anything of interest in this baseball scenario? Because we're going to hit the football segment in about 5 minutes.
I'm obviously the Houston San Diego series is big for me.
What about these National League games in front of you on the screen?
I'm looking through. Obviously, the Dodgers and Giants will be huge in this series. It'll be interesting. Price tonight going against DeScalfani. DeScalfani has been, he has been the guy, but he's been having a tough time recently. And Price, I have a hard time betting against David Price anytime he goes on the mound. I really like him. This Atlanta-Colorado game, I would like to just sit down and watch that because I think it's going to be like a video game.
Yeah,
I think it's just.
They're only two up on Philadelphia in the East and 5 up on the Mets.
Yep, and so it's Atlanta needs this win, but Colorado plays so well at home, and this is the time of year where that ball flies in Colorado. So this could be a wild game there. So I think it's going to be a great weekend of baseball in the National League.
All right, the American League scenario, we got the Yankees are only 6 back of the Rays. The Red Sox probably out of the East Division. But that wild card race between the Red Sox, the A's in third, 1 game back of the Red Sox. Red Sox 3 back of the Yankees for the 1 spot. Seattle, Toronto 3 back in the wild card race in the loss column. Cleveland only 5 back. They've won 4 in a row. And I just mentioned the Angels are 9 back. It might be too far for them to get back into it. But right now, 5 games separate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the American League wildcard race, Charlie. Big series between Boston and Cleveland. This weekend, Cleveland can make hay on them. Oakland, Toronto, a huge series. Toronto only 2 back of Oakland for that 3rd spot. And as I said, 3 out of Boston for the 2nd wildcard spot. So big series all over the place in the American League as well. Tampa Bay trying to catch the Giants and Dodgers for the best record overall. They're only 1 game back of the Giants Dodgers for the best record in baseball. They have Minnesota this weekend as well, too. What do you like on this first screen?
Well, interestingly enough, I find it interesting that we're talking about Cleveland all of a sudden back into the wild card chase.
No kidding.
We had kind of said, okay, Cleveland, they're gone. It's been nice to see you come back when you've got a new name. And all of a sudden now they're a factor again. So it'll be interesting to see what they do over the weekend. Now they need to do well in this series against Boston. But since they have Boston, if they play well, they really put themselves back into the discussion about a wild card spot. So I think that's very interesting. For Oakland, Oakland's got to play well this weekend. They have a tough one with Toronto. That's not an easy team for them. Why does it seem like we always talk about every game, every week, every series with Oakland? It's not an easy series for Oakland. They never seem to have an easy series with anybody. But they've got to start playing better because they're backsliding, and that this is not the time of year to do a backslide because you don't want to be caught in that situation to be 8-9 games left in the season and then trying to make up a bunch of games to try to slide in. So it's going to be an important weekend for them. But the Mariners to me are the story. Keep your eyes on the Mariners. They may be making the run for that second wild card spot. And that would be the story. And the Yankees, well, the Yankees continue to be relevant. If you hate the Yankees, you hate that. Major League Baseball says, yes, Yankees, stay relevant. So there you go.
White Sox 8 up on the Indians in the division race in the loss column, even though it's 9.5. It says 8 games. The Indians have games to make up. Chicago 134 games. Cleveland 131 games played. So they've got 3 games to make up. And who knows, the AL Central might not be over if the White Sox continue to slide a little bit. Lance Lynn on the 10-day injured list. Lucas Giolito may not make his next start. Rodon had a good start against Pittsburgh, but their bats are a little cold right now for the White Sox. And then Ohtani goes for the Angels. tonight versus Glen Otto, second major league start against the Angels, who are really trying to make a push for the wild card, 9 games back. All right, let's get to the wild card scenario. In the interleague games that we have, we talked about the American League wild card, 172 versus Detroit, 9.5. Gutierrez has been really good as a rookie. That's not Doyle Alexander, folks, of 1987 Detroit. That's Tyler Alexander in Detroit tonight. Yeah. Nick Castellanos facing his former team, the team he came up with. This is a huge series for the Reds. I'm looking at the wild card standings. They're tied in the loss column with the San Diego Padres, both at 63 losses. The Reds technically are in second right now by half a game with the win yesterday, 72 and 63 to San Diego, 71 and 63. Both not playing well, 4-6 in their last 10. And they've got Detroit at Detroit. I'm sorry, are they at home? I can't remember if they're at home or not. I think they're on the road, if I remember reading it right. Let me see here while we go through this. The Reds are at home. Actually, I don't see it. Anyway, the Reds are at home. That's why it's probably 172 at home, because Detroit's a pretty good team on the road. Detroit just got done with Oakland, Alexander Gutierrez. And then the Houston Astros, Jose Urquidy coming back off injury. Jake Arrieta, I'm surprised this is not a heavier favorite for Houston, the way Jake Arrieta has pitched these last couple of years. On top of that, he's coming off an injury. San Diego is relying on him to come back and help them in the playoff race. I mean, they brought Tatis back. Maybe they shouldn't have. He's in the outfield. He's having a good offensive production, but he looks a little lost in the outfield. I know he's working hard every day on it. Here are the San Diego Padres tied with the Reds. These 2 games, huge for both teams, considering the wild card scenario, Charlie. And then you look at in the NL wild card scenarios, you've got St. Louis is going to Milwaukee. They're tied with Philadelphia at 64 losses, 1 game back of the 2 wild card leaders. The Mets are at 67 losses. They're 4 games back in the wild card, 5 back in the NL East. They've won 4 in a row, and they're going to Washington, who gives them a tough time as well, too. But St. Louis is going into Milwaukee this weekend. Milwaukee's kind of cruising. We know they took 3 out of 4 from San Francisco when they're still 10 games up on the Reds in the division. The division pretty much wrapped up. Milwaukee only 4 back in the loss column of the Giants and the Reds. So it'll be interesting. Milwaukee can't let up if they want to go after the best record, but St. Louis really needs to make hay in Milwaukee against this pitching staff this weekend for them to be able to have any chance to compete for the second wild card, Charlie.
By the way, confirming that game is in Cincinnati. Cincinnati and San Diego, these 2 teams need to wake up. I mean, right now they may be looking at the second spot in the wild card, but it's like neither one of them want to win the second spot in the wild card. Okay, yeah, we're playing, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? They've got Philadelphia knocking on the door. They got St. Louis knocking on the door. And good Lord, we're still talking about the Mets being relevant in the wild card spot. They should be embarrassed. They should be totally embarrassed that they've got the Mets still being relevant at this point. The Reds are kind of a miracle being there, but San Diego, good Lord, they wrote checks that I'm not sure their bank can cash, and they're in this position. That's an embarrassment. That's an embarrassment. And poor Larry Rothschild, he's got to be sitting at home having a glass of Jack going, my fault?
I don't feel bad for him. Yeah, I don't feel bad for him at all.
He's got to be going, my fault? Really? So I mean, both Cincinnati and San Diego, at this point, I don't feel sorry for either one of them, because they should be playing better baseball. And this is the time where if you're not focused, if you're not intense, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. This weekend is pivotal for both of them, and they may take themselves out of relevancy after this weekend.
Vasuvada Party, Charlie O here, the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. Also, with football coming up, the weekends are great to go, as well as during the week. They also offer catering services to companies in and around the area or anywhere you are. They deliver. Britannia Arms, Deanza.com, 408-252-7262. You know what Friday of Labor Day is, Charlie? The Friday football segment of the Make the Money and Run podcast. We're going to take 30 seconds and 15 minutes. Our intern, Nick Robinson, will join us, but we're going to hit all the big conferences and all the games this weekend. We talked about Ohio State and Minnesota yesterday. That was a push for those that had it. I had it as a push. I did have Boise State as a 6.5-point underdog. Thank goodness I didn't get that too. at the end of the game. Otherwise, that would have been another walk-off like home run in baseball against me, but it didn't happen, and it worked out well for me from that standpoint. So anyway, Friday football segment comes up in 30 seconds. We'll be back, and Nick Robinson will join us at 45 minutes after the hour. Make sure you join that for his unique views on sports wagering and sports angles in terms of the wagering industry. Make the Money and Run podcast by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. We'll see you in 30. How you doing? Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Every Monday, Thursday, Friday, 3 Easterns on Monday, Thursday at noon Eastern, and Friday right now at 1 Eastern, Facebook and YouTube Live. Thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube Live for getting to us right now. Download and subscribe, pass it on to everybody, rate and review anywhere you get your podcast, anytime at your convenience, on demand for the Make the Money and Run podcast. This is the Friday football segment. Check out our social media as well for picks and updates on games for all the night games by 6 Eastern. I do have one game to give at the end of the show for a baseball game for the Cubs and Pirates game. And then the rest of my picks will come at 6 Eastern. Charlie will have his picks as well. At the end of the segment, we'll have Nick Robinson as well to talk about his unique view and his picks on sports and sports wagering. The University of Oregon student and our great intern does a terrific job in picking these player props and various other things that he goes into. All right, Britannia Arms of Cupertino. We said Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. Check them out. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, Charlie. First weekend of college football, Labor Day weekend, signifies the time that fall is in order. Fans are back in the stands. Some of the games that we've watched in these last 2 weeks, week 0 and the start of week 1, yesterday with Ohio State, Minnesota, Boise State, Central Florida. Let's see, the games last night that went on. So the ACC had some games yesterday. We'll talk about ACC in a second, but right now we've got the ACC lines up. UNC plays tonight, 6 and 63.5 for North Carolina tonight. Wake Forest, 31.5. They're playing Old Dominion. Duke has got UNC Charlotte. They're at UNC Charlotte, 6.5, 60.5. And Saturday, Pitt, 38.5 is Pitt over UMass. 56. Syracuse won at Ohio University. The Bobcats, 56 the total. Georgia Tech is 19. Not Georgia. Georgia Tech is 19, 56.5. And Clemson, -3, 50.5 in one of the big games this weekend in the ACC. Go, Charlie.
Hey, you know what? It's back. It's great. Last night, I was fascinated. I was fascinated by the fact that 2 Big Sky teams, which, by the way, are football championship series teams. So that's the old Division 1A. I wish they'd go back to those. It just gets too confusing. FBS, FCS, FWS, FYS. But anyway, 2 Big Sky teams last night, UC Davis and Eastern Washington, both knocked off football championship series, or the old big. I just lost my thing.
That's all right.
NCAA Division
FCS.
1.
Yeah, FCS Division 3.
And they, as UC Davis knocked off Tulsa, which was huge because Tulsa was in the top 25 last year. Right. So that was a big win. And then Eastern Washington knocked off UNLV. Now, that's not as big because if we had relegation in college football, UNLV would probably be relegated to NCAA Division 2. But still, when you've got 2 football championship series teams that knock off 2 football bowl series teams in the first real week 1 of college football, that is huge and very upsetting to football wagerers. However, I was very happy because I did some research and there was a lot of people leaning saying, take Eastern Washington. So what did I do? I took Eastern Washington. So
Right.
I'm very happy.
Exactly. All right. So the ACC games, obviously Clemson, Georgia, the game of the week, minus 350.5. UNC and Virginia Tech tonight, 6 and 63.5 at Virginia Tech. Wake Forest, Duke at UNC Charlotte. Probably wins for Wake Forest. Pittsburgh will play Massachusetts tomorrow. Syracuse, Ohio will be interesting as well, too. But that Clemson, Georgia game, a huge game tomorrow night. UNC and Virginia Tech, a pretty huge game this week as well, too, Charlie. So that's what's going on in the ACC. Let's move on to the Big 12 now. Oklahoma is going to be at Tulane, I believe, tomorrow morning. Oklahoma at Tulane, 31.5. The point spread, 68. 68 the total. Kansas is hosting Kansas. Kansas is 11.5 and 55.5. Kansas State has Stanford tomorrow. They're 3 and 53. West Virginia is going to Maryland. They're 2.5, 57 the total there. And Texas is 8.5. They are playing Louisiana Lafayette, who's a very good team. They're ranked number 23. Texas 21 in the nation, 8.5, 58.5. Baylor 14 and 53 in there. The Big 12 games, Kansas State and Stanford. Oklahoma, I'll be interested to see how Tulane plays because of the defections that Oklahoma and Texas are going to take. Texas has got Lafayette. That is going to be a tough game for them as well, too, Charlie.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Oklahoma and Texas respond or play in their first game since the announcement that they have become traitors that are going to split. I shouldn't say that. I mean, seriously, folks, we're hearing a lot of bad things about Texas and Oklahoma. Here's the facts of the matter. They're doing what's best for their schools at this point. They're splitting for a bigger conference, better money. They're trying to protect their programs. And somebody was going to do it, and they might as well jump out and be the guys to do it. So that's what they're doing. And what's the Big 12 doing right now? The Big 12's out trying to raid other conferences to help their conference right now. It's just the way of the world. If you don't like it, sorry, that's the way things are going to be. And it's probably going to be that way for the next 5 years or so until things get settled back down. But I'm interested to see what those two teams do. That Stanford-Kansas State game, that kind of surprised me a little bit about what the numbers are on that game. Because Stanford is supposed to be improved and Kansas State has not been, I mean, frankly, they've just been kind of a sucky program. And they've got pretty good odds there.
Yeah.
That's an early morning game. That's a 9:00 kickoff at Jerry's house in Dallas. So Stanford's going to get a lot of visual there. And I mention that for this reason. Obviously, we're West Coast, so we watch it, but that's not why I'm mentioning it. One of the big complaints by the Pac-12 has been they think that they kind of have been the little sisters of the poor of the Power Five because they have not been seen by everybody in the East. So they have been willing to try to get games that will place them earlier in the day on Saturdays so that people will see them, particularly writers, coaches, but also fans. So this is the first of those games that will let them see that. So they want to perform well tomorrow because they're going to be before a much, much larger audience than what they've seen in a long time.
Noon Eastern on Fox Sports 1, Stanford, Kansas State. Kansas has South Dakota tonight, 11.5 the total there. And Oklahoma, Tulane tomorrow, 31.5, 68 there. The Kansas State, Stanford game, West Virginia, Maryland game. Don't sleep on Louisiana, Lafayette, Texas 8.5. Louisiana Lafayette, number 23 in the country. They had a good year last year. I believe they're in Conference USA.
You got to say it right. Louisiana Lafayette.
Lafayette.
Okay? Lafayette.
ULL. Cover the point spread, and I'll correct it whenever we get to that point. But right now, it's going to be an interesting game. I'll be interested to see what Texas does. That game on Fox at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific on your local Fox station, your network Fox station. And then Baylor is at Texas State, 2-touchdown favorite on the road. All right, we move on the Friday football show. Vasi Vada Party. Charlie O here, the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out for all your football needs and all your British food and pub restaurant needs as well. Check them out at 408-252-7262. All right, we move on to the Big Ten. I like the Big Ten. Ohio State, beat Minnesota by 14. They pushed on the point spread last night. Defense looked a little shaky for Ohio State, giving up those runs to Ibrahim, I think it was. But anyway, the point being that PJ Fleck is a good coach, and he had them ready to play, and Ohio State had a tough time stopping them on defense. They open up in the Big Ten with conference openers. I like that. It's like a professional league. They do that very well. So 2 games last week, Nebraska, Illinois, which Illinois covered at home, a 7-point underdog on Saturday. And then yesterday, Ohio State with a push at Minnesota. Today, 1 game today, Northwestern hosts Michigan State, the game on ESPN at 9 o'clock Eastern, late night in Illinois, actually 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. Northwestern, a 3-point favorite, 46 the total. Let's talk about that for a second before we hit the Saturday games, Charlie.
Well, I think Northwestern continues to be a solid program, which is really nice to see for Northwestern's fans because they were the doormat for so long, and they have come back to establish a really solid program. Michigan State is a program that is trying to rebuild, and they've got they're in the second year with a new head coach. They're trying to rebuild a program that had just fallen apart. And I think they're rebuilding, but I don't think they're going to be a factor in the Big Ten this year. I mean, I think they're a lower third finishing team. They're not going to a bowl. So I think this is a great start for Northwestern. And so all of you Northwestern fans, particularly a lot of our friends who are in the sports media business who went to Northwestern, will be very happy because the purple and white will be, I think, victorious in this game.
I'll have my picks for all the football and later baseball by 6 Eastern on our social media pages as well. All right, 2 big games in the Big Ten. First one starts off the Fox triple header. Penn State and Wisconsin. Wisconsin 5.5, 49.5 against Penn State in Madison, Wisconsin. Wisconsin coming off a pretty good year last year. They've got some of their returners coming back. I really like Penn State. We talked last week. I think Penn State could give Ohio State kind of a run for their money. 5.5 points for me on Penn State. Give me Penn State and 5.5. I really like what James Franklin is doing. I don't like his methods all the time, but he clearly is a guy that's a good coach coming from Temple to Penn State to take over a program that was in shambles after the couple-year run, after the whole Sandusky thing and everything that came back with it. But now he's been there for 5 years, and he's turned that program around. They're number 19 in the country, going to number 17 Wisconsin. Don't be surprised if Penn State pulls the upset on them. Michigan has Western Michigan tomorrow. Is this going to be it for Jim Harbaugh after this year? We'll find out. Western Michigan, a very tough team. Rutgers is back. They're playing Temple. They got postponed yesterday to today.
Whoop. Vasu just froze up, so we'll pick it up there. We've got Fordham at Nebraska, and that will be a nice respite for Nebraska as they probably need to get a win. This should be a good game. Number 17, Indiana at number 18, Iowa. Will be interesting to see if Indiana can carry over their success from last season. Of course, we always think about Indiana being a basketball school, although they haven't been much of a basketball school in the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Hoosiers can continue their success in the Big Ten. A lot of people think they are because right now preseason top 25. So we'll be going from there. West Virginia will be at Maryland. That will be a good contest. Of course, that's a matchup of Big 12 versus Big 10. So that will be fun. And that's a regional contest, by the way, folks, because if you don't really understand geography, West Virginia and Maryland butt up against each other. So that's a big deal right there. Oregon State is at Purdue. So that's a Pac-12 Big 10 matchup there. And that'll be fun. And then Illinois, because they were willing to start off with Nebraska, they get the University of Texas, San Antonio tomorrow. So again, we have what would traditionally be game 1 in game 2 with the start there in the Big Ten. So that's a start off there for them. And I think we've got Vasu back now. Vasu, I just went ahead and finished off the schedule in the Big Ten.
All right, Iowa and Indiana. Last game, Purdue has Oregon State coming up as well in the Big Ten. Let's go to the Pac-12 here a little bit before we get Nick Robinson in. We'll hit the Pac-12 a little bit. Colorado, 38.5 tonight against Northern Colorado. Oregon, 20.5 at 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow against Fresno State. Our Spartans are going to go to USC, 14-60 the total there. Cal and Nevada, 3.5 and 52.5. And then Washington State will have 17.5 point spread against, I think, Utah State. They're playing up tomorrow night. All right. So we'll hit that in a second. Let's take 30 seconds. Let's bring Nick Rock to talk about the Friday football segment, sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check it out. Hopefully their internet is a lot better than ours today between the two of us. We'll be back in 30 seconds with the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, September 3rd. Happy Labor Day weekend, everybody. All right, welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday football segment. Look who's here with us, Charlie, our intern, Nick Robinson. We want to welcome University
Nick,
of
how are
Oregon
you, buddy?
Student.
Great, how are you?
Robinson.
I'm good, man.
Does a great job with us. On the picks. Right now, we're in the Pac-12. Nick, this is a conference that you know very well. The Oregon Ducks are going to have Fresno State tomorrow. Why don't you just break down the Pac-12 here a little bit for us?
Yeah, so I'm very excited to have football back. Obviously, last year we didn't have too many fans. Me personally, I go to Oregon, so I wasn't able to go to any games, but now we're back. We got a home game, obviously, against Fresno State. I'm very excited for this one. I personally think that Oregon hopefully is going to steamroll Fresno State. I mean, with the fans back, we got thousands and thousands of fans rallying behind them, and I've been to an Oregon game personally, and the fans are very crucial for their state of mind and their play. So I think they are going to absolutely come out firing, at least in the beginning. And so I love Oregon in this one. And there's a couple other games I like, but personally I'm keening in on the Oregon one. I'm personally going to be watching it back home with my family. I wish I could be there, but I know in the future I'm excited to go, and big Oregon guy here, so very excited for that one.
All right, let's move on to the SEC real quick. Big SEC games. Alabama is going to go to Miami. They're a 19.5-point favorite. Kentucky, Arkansas playing also-rans. Mississippi State, Missouri, Florida, 23-point favorite there as well. Texas A&M, 29.5. LSU going to visit UCLA. We didn't talk about UCLA in the Pac-12 segment because we're doing it by the favorite. So LSU 2.5, 64.5. Charlie at UCLA. UCLA coming off the big win against Hawaii. LSU pretty highly ranked. I don't know where they are in terms of SEC lore right now, behind Alabama and Georgia, but it's going to be an interesting game tomorrow night, Charlie, between LSU and UCLA.
Yeah, I think it's a big test for UCLA because we've talked about that. Everyone's saying UCLA, this is their comeback year. This is the year where Chip Kelly earns his money. I say this is a year where Chip Kelly better earn his money. So it'll be interesting to see. I really thought that LSU would come in a little bigger favorite than this. I mean, coming in -2.5 is it. That's a little short, frankly. I thought for them. I mean, I know they're on the road, but I would have thought that they would have come in a little larger number there. So I think it's going to be a pretty good game.
Nick, what do you think about UCLA LSU tomorrow night?
I also think it's going to be a great game, what Charlie said, but I also have LSU kind of running away with this one. They've got the big recruits. They've got that big wide receiver core, and I just don't think UCLA's corners can keep up with them.
All right, so the SEC getting ready. Alabama, Miami, big game tomorrow. Georgia and Clemson, the big game on TV tomorrow as well, too. All right, just a couple of notes here. The Mountain West, San Diego State, 31.5 and 51.5. And then the American, I like Cincinnati quite a bit, 23.5 and 50. And Marshall, 2.5 on the road as well. And that Houston, Texas Tech game will be interesting, -1, 64.5, the total there as well. All right, Nick Robinson with us, our intern now. Talk about sports wagering from a different angle. Go ahead with what you got for us today, Nick.
Yeah, so
processing, I should say.
Yeah, so personally, I think the sports betting game has been on the rise, and I know people love betting on teams and watching games and rooting for a specific team, and that brings a lot of excitement into the sports. But I also think a big thing that's booming right now is individual player prop betting. So fantasy football is also on the rise too. So people love engaging with players, also teams, but players specifically. And a way to get a lot of exposure into that is betting on players specifically. And I love player prop bets, like future bets. I have a couple here, like say in the future, Jonathan Taylor, his yards for the season is set at 1,199, I believe. And I think that's an easy hammer for the over. With that line, they've got the best guard in all of football. They got Quentin Nelson. They've got Sentenzo or whatever his name is. He's fantastic. They just have a top 5 line according to Pro Football Focus. And Taylor at the end of the year, he averaged about like 110 yards per game. So I think he'll let that over. And just betting on players individually is just an easy way to get exposure in NFL.
Charlie, what do you think about Nick and the way he looks at sports and sports wagering, the player props and all that?
Well, you know what? Player props are fun, and there is a lot of money to be made. Now, you got to do your homework. If you're going in and picking player props just because, oh, hey, I know that guy's name, I think I'll do that, or I like the color of that guy's jersey, then just send Nick, Vasu, and me your money because we can use it. But if you want to do just a little bit of homework and watch and see what's going on, and again, this is good by statistic. This is looking at a little historical numbers and then looking at what lines do and that kind of stuff, what kind of experiences on the line, what the defenses do. But if you're willing to do a little homework, there's some money to be made on player props. And it's fun. It's really fun because I love it because you could be living and dying in different games. You can be coming down to like the last 2 or 3 plays in a game and going, please just give them the ball.
The genesis of all this was based on the fact of fantasy football, and you have your fantasy football rosters and you just go play by play. And the sports books and the sports wagers have found a way to monetize that in terms of these extra propositions, because on Super Bowl Sunday, there's 9 million things to bet on besides the game itself. And they've kind of extrapolated that to regular season. And all you got to do is go to any sports book, pick up one of their sheets, and you'll see all the prop bets that are out there for every game, not just Super Bowl Sunday or not just big events. All right, Nick, what do you got for the weekend in terms of college football? Give us your picks.
Perfect. So for this weekend, I love Clemson this week. I think this is just a big game for them. I think they're going to come out firing. This is pretty much their only hard top 10 game on their schedule this year. So I think they really need this win in order for them to make the college playoffs, especially with a new young quarterback. So I'm going with Clemson -3. And then also, I don't want to be the fan here, but I actually think Oregon is going to win, but I'm not going with them full time. I'm going to go with the first half, -10.5. I think they're going to come out firing in the beginning and be up double digits by the end of the first half, if not more. And last but not least, I'm going with Texas -4 also in the first half versus Lafayette. I think they're also going to come out firing with the fans. Texas, their stadium can hold a lot of fans. I think they're going to rally behind those fans and get that first half easy.
All right, Nick Robinson with his look at sports wagering and the sports gaming player props, his 3 picks for the weekend, the first half on Texas, first half on Oregon, and then Clemson -3 for the weekend. Nick, we're looking forward to having you every Friday with your unique view of things. Thanks a lot for being with us. We will talk to you next week at this time, 10:45 on the West Coast, 1:45 on the East Coast. You can follow Nick on Facebook as well. You have a Twitter site? I forgot you have a Twitter site?
I do. My Twitter is @NickRobinSports.
All right, so there you go. Nick Robinson, our intern, our good intern, great intern, gives us a lot of knowledge on the player props. All right, Nick, Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Charlie, Vasu,
Hey,
have
Nick.
a good weekend. Good luck to everyone.
Okay. All right, Charlie. So there you go. Nick Robinson is a unique view of wagering. All right, we're going to take 30 seconds more and come back with our picks for the weekend. I will have one pick coming up. Charlie will have his picks, and we'll go over some of the games that we have. And if we have later picks, we'll post them by 6 Eastern on all our social media pages. Make the money and run podcast for Friday, September 3rd. Happy Labor Day weekend to everybody. Be safe and sound. Enjoy it. And we'll be back in 30 seconds. Sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDeanza.com. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, September 3rd, 2021. Vasi Vada Party here with Charlie O. Here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, live on Facebook and live on YouTube, noon West Coast time on Monday, noon East Coast time on Thursday, 9 a.m. And then today, Friday, 10 o'clock on the West Coast, 1 Eastern, Facebook and YouTube. Download, subscribe, rate, and review anywhere you get your podcast on demand. You can check out our podcasts on any of the podcasting outlets. Also, check our social media pages out by 6 o'clock every day. We'll have all the updated night action if we have any added picks to our show days. And every day we'll try and put some picks out there by 6 o'clock or whatever, or a half hour before the first game starts. So tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday with college football out, we will have picks out on the social media pages by 11:30 a.m. Eastern before the noon kickoffs for college football. Same with Sundays when the NFL starts the following weekend as well too. So we're there with that. We're here for you for football. This is the way the podcasting world goes when it comes to sports and sports wagering. Football is where you hammer it. So we realize that. So football is the majority of our conversation going into this. All right. So we had Nick Robinson, the intern, on. If you missed that, you can download it anytime you want. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. 408-252-7262, Britannia Arms, Deanza.com. All right, Charlie, we get to our picks. I only have one pick for now because it's the afternoon game. Alec Mills goes for the Chicago Cubs against Stephen Brault and the woeful Pittsburgh Pirates. Not saying that the Cubs aren't woeful, but they're a lot more woeful than the Chicago Cubs right now. They have players on that team. Brian Reynolds is an all-star. Adam Frazier was a starter in the all-star game before he got traded to the San Diego Padres. Alec Mills shut down the Chicago White Sox last week on the road, 7-0 on a Saturday night game. Shut them down, shut that heavy White Sox offense down. He's a good young rising star for the Cubs in their pitching rotation. Their young guys are starting to play well. The guys that brought up after the trading deadline, Patrick Wisdom, if you haven't heard of him, check him out. He's got 25 home runs, playing a great third base. Rafael Ortega was up at 345 at one point in the season. Last Saturday in the Alec Mills game, he hit a grand slam off Lance Lynn. The Cubs are playing well right now. They've got things going on. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. They just got swept by the White Sox, so they stayed in Chicago for probably 3 more days of brutality. It's a nice city. If you're going to lose 6 games in a row, at least do it in a nice city, and this could be potentially what the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to have happen to them. But it's true. I mean, all you got to do is look at the standings, and you see where Pittsburgh's at. And our friend John Parado, Pittsburgh is 48 and 86. The Cubs are not that much better, but they are 60 and 75. The Cubs on a 3-game winning streak. The Pirates on a 3-game losing streak, and that's the White Sox series for the Pirates. I forgot who the Cubs played, but they played well in their last 3 games. I do remember that they did.
What was the preseason over and under? 58 on the Pirates? Wasn't that what it was?
Something like that. 59.5, I think it was. We'll have to get John Parado on the phone, but I think it's 59.5. Anyway, my first pick of the day, starting in 20 minutes, will be 143 on the Cubs, going with Alec Mills against Stephen Brault. All right, Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, I didn't get to put everything up on the banner because of my technical difficulties earlier. So I will give these to you, Vastu, so you can post them on the social media. My baseball picks, I'm going with the White Sox minus 130 over Kansas City. I just think the White Sox know they need to get healthy. Kansas City not playing all that well, so I like it. My other baseball pick today is I am going with the video game that is going to happen in Denver. And I'm going the over 11 runs in the game between Atlanta and Colorado because I just think that is going to be a volume run game there.
All right, White Sox and the Braves Rockies over. Sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's oldest British restaurant and pub since 1981. Britannia Arms, Deanza.com, 408-252-7262. Have a great Labor Day weekend. We'll see you on Monday, 3 Eastern. Check out our social media as well for updated picks. Also, the college football games this weekend, 11:30 Eastern tomorrow. We'll have our picks up, and 6 o'clock Eastern tonight for any updates on games in baseball. Dodgers Giants big series this weekend. Some college football as well. See you later, everybody. Have a great Labor Day weekend.